Would you believe your own mother tried to drown you while you were pregnant, and then begged you for forgiveness when you finally woke up? When I opened my eyes after 4 years, the world felt too bright, too loud, too unreal. My body felt heavy, like it belonged to someone else. A doctor stood beside me, relief flooding his face. He said my name slowly, as if testing whether I still belonged here. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked like old paper. I didn't remember falling or slipping or anything that sounded like an accident. I remembered hands. My mother's hands. Cold, steady, and cruel. The last memory before the darkness swallowed me was the 4th of July. Music, laughter, the smell of grilled food, and Claudia Morrison forcing my head under the water while smiling like it was a family game. I remembered kicking, struggling, panic shooting through my chest. I remembered my father telling me to stop overreacting. I remembered the baby inside me, my little Harper, and how desperately I wanted to live for her. And then nothing. Lying in that hospital bed, hearing machines beep, I knew none of this was a nightmare. When the doctor told me I had a 4-year-old daughter now, born through an emergency C-section the night I went unconscious, my heart twisted. For years stolen from me. For years I should have spent holding her, feeding her, watching her open her eyes for the first time. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My tears were stuck somewhere deep, under layers of anger and confusion. Then Claudia walked in. Her crying echoed in the small room, loud, messy, desperate. She dropped to her knees beside the bed as if she were the victim. She kept saying she never meant to hurt me, that she thought she knew better, that it was all a terrible mistake. But I remembered everything. I remembered her grip. I remembered her voice urging me to relax while I fought for air. I remembered the crowd around the pool, frozen between shock and obedience to my father. When she reached for my hand, something inside me hardened. I wasn't the same woman I was 4 years ago. I wasn't the scared daughter who grew up believing my parents' twisted version of love. I had died once already. I wasn't going to let them bury me again. My throat burned as I forced out the words, my first real sentence after years of silence. Now I'm coming for my revenge. Claudia froze. Her sobbing stopped. Her eyes widened with a fear I had never seen before. And for the first time in my life, I felt powerful. She tried to apologize again, but I looked away. I didn't want her excuses. I wanted answers. I wanted my daughter. And I wanted justice for what they did to me, for what they tried to do to Harper. I didn't know how long it would take or what battles waited for me outside that hospital room. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. They had taken everything from me once. This time, I was taking everything back. During grueling rehab, Vivian's sister, Miranda, visits and confesses she was present the day everything went wrong, but couldn't bring herself to intervene. She stands by the edge of the room, unable to meet my eyes at first. When she finally speaks, her words come out in a rush, as if she has been holding them in for years. She admits she froze, too afraid to challenge our parents, and the guilt has followed her every day since. Then she adds something I never expected. Garrett tried to reach me during the chaos, but Raymond stopped him. Hearing that he fought for me, even for a moment, hits me with a strange mix of relief and pain. It doesn't erase the hurt, but it softens a piece of the story I thought I already understood. That fragile moment of comfort doesn't last. A few days later, my Aunt Sylvia arrives, carrying a stack of documents that she places quietly on the table. Sylvia has always been straightforward, and the look on her face tells me the papers won't bring good news. She explains that Garrett struggled after the incident. He stayed by my bedside for months, waiting for a sign that I would open my eyes. But with every passing week, my parents pressed harder on him. They told him there was no hope, that keeping the marriage alive was only prolonging his suffering. They convinced him to file for divorce, using medical statements that described my condition as permanent. The words feel heavy, but Sylvia doesn't stop there. She explains that because Garrett was legally the only active parent, the court granted him full custody of Harper. What happened next is what turns my stomach. A year after the divorce, Garrett, worn down and grieving, surrendered Harper to Claudia and Raymond. He trusted them to take care of her, not knowing what they had done to me. Then he left the state completely, choosing distance over staying connected to a life filled with loss. No letters, no calls, no updates. Just silence. I sit there in my rehab chair, my muscles aching from the morning's exercises, and let the truth settle. In the 4 years I was gone, everyone made choices for me. Papers were signed. Rights were taken. My name was removed from my own child's life. And through all of it, I wasn't there to defend myself or Harper. The anger I felt before changes shape. It becomes steady, focused, and sharper than anything I've carried. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about undoing the damage, step by step. My parents may have built an entire legal wall around my daughter, but now I finally understand what I'm fighting. Harper isn't lost to me. She's just on the other side of their lies. Reclaiming her becomes the only goal that matters. After I was discharged, I moved into a small apartment Sylvia found for me. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and it gave me space to think clearly for the first time since waking up. I spent those first days getting used to simple routines, making my own meals, walking without someone watching over me, and learning how to live again. But underneath that calm, I was focused. I knew I needed proof if I wanted any chance of getting Harper back. The first person I reached out to was Jennifer, one of the few friends I trusted. She didn't treat me like someone fragile or lost. She just came over with her laptop and said she had something to show me. We sat at my small kitchen table while she opened a set of archived pages from an old wellness forum. At first, I didn't understand why she was showing it to me. Then she clicked on a thread, and I saw a username I recognized instantly, my mother's. My stomach tightened as I read the posts. They weren't random comments or casual questions. They were detailed discussions about cold water practices, ways to make someone stay still, and how to manage resistance. Each message was calm and planned, as if she were preparing for a project. There was no doubt in my mind. What happened to me wasn't a moment of panic or a misguided experiment. She had studied it, asked questions, and planned every step. Seeing that in writing made something inside me settle. I finally had proof that what I remembered wasn't twisted by fear or time. She intended it. Knowing this gave me the push I needed, so I hired Maxwell Cooper, a sharp family law attorney Sylvia recommended. Maxwell didn't waste time with sympathy. He focused on the facts, asked direct questions, and told me plainly what we needed to win. It was the first time since waking up that I felt like someone was standing with me instead of against me. While reviewing details of the case, Maxwell mentioned he had found someone important, Veronica Sanchez. Her name brought back a faint memory of the crowd around the pool that day. She had lived next door, often invited to family gatherings. Maxwell said she had been struggling with guilt for years and finally wanted to speak. I met her in his office, and the moment she walked in, her hands were trembling. She told me she saw everything. She remembered my mother pushing me down, my father blocking anyone who tried to help, and the panic that spread when I stopped moving. She admitted she stayed silent out of fear, but she couldn't live with it anymore. She agreed to testify and tell the truth about what happened and how everyone covered for my parents when the paramedics arrived. Listening to her made my heart heavy, but it also strengthened me. I had proof, witnesses, and a lawyer who understood the fight ahead. Every piece I gathered brought me closer to Harper. I wasn't moving blindly anymore. I was building my case, one stone at a time. When Maxwell and I finally filed the petition to end the guardianship, I felt a mix of fear and relief. It was the first real step toward getting my daughter back. I knew my parents wouldn't accept it quietly, but I still wasn't ready for the force they came at me with. Their lawyer, Sebastian Drake, entered the case almost immediately. He was polished, confident, and clearly hired to make my life as difficult as possible. The first thing he did was question my ability to take care of a child. He filed motions claiming I was mentally unstable because of the coma, arguing that I couldn't handle stress or make steady decisions. He brought in paid specialists who wrote reports without ever meeting me. Their words were cold and clinical, painting a picture of someone broken and confused. Reading those claims felt like someone was erasing me all over again. Maxwell told me not to panic. He arranged independent evaluations with real doctors who took their time and listened. Those appointments were long and exhausting. I talked about my recovery, my memories, and the plans I had for my life with Harper. Every session felt like another test I had to pass, but I stayed focused. When the final reports came in, they described me as capable, strong, and clear-headed. Having that in writing lifted a weight off my shoulders. While all this was happening, I knew I had to show the court stability. I took a small job at a nearby cafe. It wasn't demanding, but it showed that I could work, follow a routine, and take care of myself. Each shift reminded me that I was rebuilding my life from the ground up. The pay wasn't much, but the consistency mattered more than anything. Meanwhile, my parents didn't stay quiet. Claudia kept sending long, emotional letters. She filled them with apologies and excuses, trying to make everything sound like a misunderstanding. I didn't respond to any of them. Raymond took a different approach. He left angry voicemails, warning me that I was making a mistake. He tried to intimidate me, pushing the same fear he had controlled me with all my life. I blocked his number, but the damage of hearing his voice stayed with me for days. Despite all of this, something inside me was changing. Instead of breaking down, I felt myself getting stronger. Every letter, every phone call, every legal document only made me more certain of what I wanted. I wasn't doing this to punish them. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing this because Harper needed me, and I needed her. The court needed to see that I wasn't shaking, no matter how much pressure my parents tried to create. Walking into each meeting with Maxwell, I felt more grounded. My parents had money, influence, and a lawyer who knew how to twist anything he touched. But I had the truth, and I had the courage that grew a little more each day. I didn't know how long the fight would last, but I was ready for it. I wasn't giving up, not now, not ever. When the custody hearing finally began, I walked into the courtroom with steady steps, reminding myself that every moment had led to this point. The room felt tense, filled with quiet whispers and stiff faces. I sat beside Maxwell, trying to keep my breathing calm as the judge called the first witness. Veronica Sanchez was asked to take the stand. She looked nervous but determined. When she started speaking, her voice shook, yet she didn't hold back. She described the gathering that day, the music, the laughter, and how everything changed in seconds. She talked about seeing me struggle in the water, the panic in my movements, and how no one stepped in. Her eyes filled with tears as she explained how the noise around the pool faded into shock, and how the truth was hidden from the paramedics. Her honesty filled the room with a weight that everyone felt. Listening to her was painful, but it was also the moment I realized the wall my parents had built around their lives was beginning to crack. After Veronica, it was Claudia's turn. She walked to the stand slowly, looking smaller than she ever had in my memories. She tried to stay calm, but Maxwell's questions were direct and firm. He showed her the old forum posts. He read her own words aloud, each line revealing intention, planning, and awareness. Claudia's face tightened, and her hands trembled. At first, she tried to explain, but the more she spoke, the more her voice wavered. Then something unexpected happened. She stopped answering Maxwell's question mid-sentence. Her eyes dropped to her lap, and her shoulders shook. It was as if the pressure of hiding everything for years finally broke her. She began talking without being prompted, pouring out details no one had asked for. She admitted she had prepared for the incident. She admitted she saw the fear on my face. She admitted she lied to protect Raymond and to protect the family image. Her words spilled out, raw and disorganized, but impossible to ignore. The courtroom went silent. Every person in the room watched her crumble under the truth she had carried for so long. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was confessing. She didn't look at me once, but her voice shook with remorse that she could no longer hide. Hearing her say the things I had remembered for years made my chest tighten. It didn't erase anything, but it confirmed everything. When she finally stopped speaking, it was as if the air shifted. The judge looked stunned. Maxwell remained still, letting her words settle. Then everyone's attention turned to Raymond. His expression was tense, jaw clenched, eyes cold, but he couldn't hide the fear creeping across his face. Claudia's confession had pulled him into the open. Her statements made it clear he had been involved in every part of the cover-up, and his calm, controlling image started to fall apart. For the first time since waking up, I felt the balance change. Their power was slipping. The truth was no longer buried, and the wall they had built around their actions was finally breaking in front of everyone. When the judge read the decision, I felt the world go strangely quiet. The guardianship was officially ended. My parents no longer had any rights over Harper, and the control they held for years was gone in a single ruling. Maxwell placed a gentle hand on my arm, telling me it was a solid win, but the relief I expected didn't come. I sat there, still and steady, trying to absorb everything. Claudia and Raymond avoided criminal charges only because they agreed to a large settlement and certain conditions. The agreement forced them to hand over funds that would support Harper's future and cover the long list of legal expenses they created. Claudia was ordered to start psychiatric treatment immediately. She didn't resist. She looked drained, as if she had nothing left to hide behind. Raymond, usually so sure of himself, looked shaken. His reputation, something he valued above all else, was shattered. People who once praised him now whispered about him, avoiding his gaze when he walked past. Watching them lose the influence they built felt strangely distant, like I was observing someone else's story. Even with all of this, I didn't feel victorious. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't smiling. I felt hollow, as if the long fight had drained everything from me. Winning the case didn't bring the peace I thought it would. I had exposed the truth, cracked their polished image, and ended their control, but none of that filled the empty space in my chest. What stayed in my mind wasn't the courtroom or the settlement. It was Harper. I kept thinking about the little girl waiting somewhere else, unaware of any of this. She had grown up calling someone else Mama, the same woman who hurt me. She didn't know me, not really. I had missed her first steps, her first words, her little routines, her favorite toys, the sound of her laugh. I was her mother on paper again, but in her world, I was a stranger. That thought weighed on me more than anything my parents ever did. I wasn't afraid of the legal hurdles anymore. I had faced them and won. What scared me now was something much quieter, earning my daughter's trust. No court order could guide me through that part. No lawyer could prepare me for it. As I left the building, I looked up at the sky, trying to steady my thoughts. I felt the cool air on my face, the kind that made everything feel sharp and real. People walked past, busy with their own lives, unaware of the storm that had just ended for me. I didn't want revenge anymore. I didn't even want closure. I wanted Harper. I wanted the chance to be her mother in a way I never had before. The fight in the courtroom was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. I had to step into a new role, not as someone seeking justice, but as someone rebuilding a bond from nothing. I had won in the eyes of the law, but my heart knew this was only the first part of a much longer journey. When I walked into the visitation room, my hands felt cold. The space was plain, with soft colors and a few toys arranged neatly on a rug. I had prepared myself for this moment, yet nothing could fully steady me for the sight of Harper sitting at the small table, her legs swinging, her eyes alert and unsure. She looked up at me with a curious expression, studying me the same way children observe something new, but not yet trusted. The counselor introduced me quietly, using my name first. Harper tilted her head and whispered, "That's the lady who was sleeping." Hearing that stung, but I kept my face calm. She wasn't wrong. That was all she knew of me. I forced myself to stay in the moment, to meet her where she was instead of rushing toward where I wished we could be. I sat down slowly, leaving space so she wouldn't feel crowded. A box of crayons was open in front of her, and she pushed it gently toward me without saying anything. Her small act felt like a door opening just a little. I picked a blue crayon, and she chose a green one. We colored quietly, side by side, without talking too much. I let her lead the way, copying her shapes, adding tiny stars when she added circles. Every few minutes she glanced up at me, checking if I was still there, still patient, still steady. After coloring, she moved to the building blocks. She didn't invite me with words, but her hand tapping the floor was enough. I followed her gesture and sat with her. She stacked blocks carefully, pausing between each one as if testing their balance. I watched her, admiring how focused she was, how gentle her movements were. When one tower wobbled, she frowned. I didn't fix it for her. I just waited. She tried again, solved it on her own, and gave a tiny, satisfied smile. That smile warmed something in me that had been cold for years. We talked lightly about simple things, her favorite colors, the animals she liked, how she wanted a toy horse someday. Her voice was soft but clear, and each word felt like a gift. I didn't bring up anything heavy. I didn't mention the past or the confusion she must have felt. I just listened, matching her pace, letting her comfort grow naturally. Toward the end of the visit, she leaned close to pick up another crayon. Her shoulder brushed mine, and she didn't pull away. It was the first physical closeness between us, small but meaningful. She looked up at me and asked, "Mommy, can you make a sun?" The words slipped from her without hesitation, without fear, without someone telling her what to say. It came from her, simple and pure. My breath caught, and I nodded, keeping my movements calm even though my heart felt like it was trembling. I drew the sun slowly, rays stretching across the page, trying not to let my emotions show too strongly. She watched me with wide eyes, satisfied with the drawing, then leaned against me with a quiet trust that felt like the beginning of something real. For the first time since waking up, I felt whole. Not because of the courtroom, not because of any ruling, but because my daughter said one word that finally tied us together. Mommy. I moved into the small sunny house with Harper, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. The custody battle was finally over, and the settlement gave me enough stability to focus on us instead of constantly worrying about how to survive. The house wasn't big, but the light poured through the windows in a way that made everything feel warmer. It was quiet, calm, and ours. I wanted Harper to feel safe again, so I tried to build a steady rhythm for both of us. We adopted a silly, clumsy dog who followed Harper everywhere and slept at her feet every night. It made her laugh in a way I hadn't heard for months, and that alone made every choice I had made feel worth it. In the backyard, we started a small garden. Harper picked bright flowers, and I chose herbs I could use in simple meals. Watching something grow helped me feel grounded, like I was rebuilding something inside myself too. During the slower mornings, I found myself writing again. I had forgotten how much I loved creating stories. It felt like rediscovering a part of me that had been buried under stress and disappointment. The quiet of the house helped clear the noise in my head. I wrote on the porch while Harper drew pictures nearby, sometimes stopping to show me her work. These small moments made our days feel steady and real. But healing wasn't perfect or easy. Harper still woke up from nightmares sometimes, shaken by memories she couldn't fully understand. She clung to me whenever we passed a pool or even saw water too deep. I could see how the past had settled into her little shoulders, heavier than it should have been for her age. I refused to let her carry that weight alone. I signed both of us up for therapy. I didn't want to pretend things were fine or let our pain sit quietly until it grew into something harder to handle. I wanted help, guidance, and a way to make sure neither of us repeated the patterns we had lived through. Harper slowly opened up in her sessions, and I did the same in mine. Each week felt like another step toward something healthier. Our life became simple, but it was finally steady. Every day in the new house reminded me that I had chosen peace over chaos, even when that choice came with losses and fear. I built a home where Harper wouldn't have to question love or safety, where she could laugh, grow, and heal freely. And in creating that for her, I created it for myself too. The letters kept coming, each one in Claudia's familiar handwriting, but I never opened them. I placed every envelope in a small box on the top shelf of my closet and left them there. I didn't want to read excuses or promises or anything that would drag me back into a place I had worked so hard to leave. I wasn't angry anymore, but I had nothing left to give her. My energy belonged to Harper and to the life we were building, not to old wounds that never healed the way they should have. Most mornings were spent getting Harper ready for school. She had been nervous about her first day, clinging to my hand with wide eyes, but I stayed steady for her. Watching her walk into that classroom felt like watching the world open up for her. I wanted her to feel safe, confident, and supported, things I never had when I was her age. I made sure she knew I would always be there to pick her up, listen to her stories, and help her through anything she didn't understand. Her fear of water showed up again when we started her gentle swim lessons. The first time her feet touched the pool's edge, she froze. Her little fingers tightened around mine, and I could feel her shaking. I didn't push her. I just sat beside her, letting her decide when she was ready to take small steps forward. Over time, she loosened her grip, splashed a little, and began trusting the process. Each moment was quiet but meaningful, showing me that healing didn't need big speeches or dramatic scenes, just patience and consistency. At home, our days were filled with simple routines that gave us structure. We cooked easy meals together, read books on the couch, and made small plans for the future. Life didn't feel heavy anymore. It wasn't perfect, but it was clean, free from manipulation, guilt, and all the noise that used to follow me. Sometimes I caught myself thinking about Claudia, not with anger, but with distance. I realized that the opposite of love wasn't hate, it was indifference. I didn't need to confront her, prove anything, or respond to her attempts to explain. Silence was its own answer. My life had moved on, and I wasn't going to let her pull me back into a story I no longer wanted to be part of. My real revenge was simple: a calm home, a happy daughter, and a future that wasn't shaped by the people who hurt me. Harper's laugh, her growing confidence, and the way she came home with paint on her shirt and big stories to tell. That was the life I chose. And it was a life no one from the past could touch or ruin. A full year passed before I truly felt the change inside me. It happened on a warm afternoon at a quiet lake, where Harper ran toward the shallow water with a confidence I had never seen in her before. She splashed around without fear, laughing as the gentle waves touched her legs. Watching her move so freely felt like witnessing a chapter closing, not with noise or anger, but with a calm that settled deep in my chest. I realized then that the idea of revenge, the one that had pushed me through some of the darkest moments, had slowly faded. It wasn't anger that carried me anymore. It was the steady work of building a safe life for both of us. The people who once controlled everything had already ruined themselves with their choices. I didn't need to finish them off or keep looking back. My strength came from surviving what they put me through, not from punishing them. Standing there at the lake, I understood that breaking the cycle mattered more than anything. I didn't want Harper to grow up in fear or confusion. I didn't want her to carry old shadows that never belonged to her. So I gave her truth in small, age-appropriate ways. I gave her a home where she never had to guess if she was wanted. I gave her calm days, honesty, and steady love, the things I once wished for but never received. When she ran back toward me, dripping water everywhere, she grabbed my hand with a bright smile, and in that moment everything became clear. The long fight, the courtrooms, the nights filled with worry, the effort to rebuild. I hadn't done it for vengeance at all. I had done it to create a life where she could grow without fear, where I could breathe without the weight of old battles pressing down on me. We walked along the shore together, our footprints fading behind us. I didn't think about the past, and I didn't worry about what anyone else was doing. For the first time, the future felt open, not like something I had to defend, but something I could shape. I came into this journey believing I needed revenge to feel whole. But standing there beside Harper, I knew I had won something far better. I had a life no one could twist or take away. I had peace, quiet, steady, and completely mine. Do you think I was right to focus on peace and build a new life for me and Harper? Or should I have let my parents back in? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell.